I didn't grow up in a Christian family. I grew up in a completely non-Christian family, but I found Jesus when I was about 18 years old. I found faith. I found this amazing thing that was just God, and he was real, and it was awesome for me. And so of course I wanted to share that with my family, right? I had a mother, a father, a little sister, a little brother, and they didn't know anything about God. And so I desperately really wanted them to find what I had found. And one day I thought I had the perfect opportunity. This is what happened. My little brother, he was about 10 years old at that time, he had lost his favourite toy off the side of our deck into the abyss of the garden below, which is like heaps of bushes, this big like cliffside. And I thought, this is it. This is God's perfect opportunity to prove he is real to my brother. So I pulled my brother aside, I looked him in the eyes, and I said, God is real, and he is going to help us find your toy. And then we prayed, and I prayed like this really great prayer, believing that the miracle of all miracles would happen and we would find that toy. So after my awesome prayers, we went into the garden and we looked and we looked and we looked and we didn't find the toy. And I was like so mad at God. Like, my brother probably doesn't even remember. I don't even know what he thought. Just probably thought his crazy religious sister. But I was angry because I had orchestrated the perfect moment for God to flex his muscles and show off, but no, nothing. I felt like God had dropped the ball and left me with a serious case of questions. Tons of questions. And speaking of questions, we're going to talk about someone else tonight who had questions, had his fair share of doubts, and that is Peter. If you don't know who Peter is, he is one of the 12 disciples. He's one of the 3 that are mentioned as being like closest to Jesus. He's basically one of Jesus's very best friends here on earth. And this story that I'm speaking of comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 14, 22 to 33. What's going on here is that Jesus has had a really big day. He's been speaking to thousands of people. He's been doing miracles. He's turned some loaves and fishes into food for everybody, that kind of thing. He's exhausted. He just wants some alone time after this big day. And so he sends all the people home, and then he loads up all his disciples into a boat, and he sends them out on the lake, and he says, I need some me time, guys. I need some chill out time. You go ahead. I'll meet you later. And then he goes off for a hike, as Jesus does a lot. It's very spiritual. It's very scenic. It's a lot like Wanaka. A lot of us do that kind of thing. Jesus liked to do it too. It's quite cool. So Jesus is off having some cool time with God, and then things get dicey over the night. What's happening outside right now happens. A storm rolls in, and the waves are crashing. The disciples are on this boat. They're freaking out that the boat is going to sink. It's quite interesting. We did that big song about the storm because the story is about the storm. And what happens is they see this figure walking across the water towards them, and they're freaking out, like they're like a ghost. They scream, a ghost, in pure terror, which is fair enough, I think. Because if I saw someone in a storm walking towards me, my first thought would not be like, hey, it must be Jesus. I would be like, Ghostbusters time, guys, like this freaky. But it is Jesus, actually. And he says, relax, guys, just me. Don't be afraid. Now, Peter gets suddenly bold. I don't know where he gets this idea from, but when you're hanging out with Jesus, sometimes you can get bold. And he says this. He says, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come out on the water. Which is like a crazy idea, but very cool. But notice in that sentence, the first doubt. If it's really you. So he's actually not even sure if it's actually Jesus. But Jesus, probably looking for a bit of entertainment, says, okay, all right, Peter, come on, jump out of the boat. And Peter, full of faith and maybe a bit of adrenaline, steps out and walks on water. Actual miracle moment. And he starts to panic. He starts to doubt. And the more he doubts, the more he sinks. But here's the wild part. Jesus doesn't shame him as he's starting to swim and the miracle's wearing out. He grabs his hand and he pulls him back up and he asks this awesome question. He says, "Why did you doubt?" Now, you could read that question in a negative way, and maybe if you've grown up in church, you might have always thought that was the tone. Like Jesus is saying, "Come on, Peter, why did you doubt? Bro, you've been with me all day, saw the loaves and the fish and stuff, what's wrong with you? Where's your faith? Shame, shame, shame." Like Jesus is roasting him. What is wrong with you, Peter? But what if the question is not an accusation? What if it's actually an invitation? What if the tone was more like, "Hey, Peter, what's going on in your heart, man? Why are you doubting me? Let's unpack that doubt together. Let's talk about it, Peter." Bella and I are going to share this message. Where is Bella? There you are. Yeah. Wrong daughter. But here's the takeaway. This is the thing that I hope you remember this week as you're going about your everyday lives. This is it. Faith isn't about pretending to have it all together. Faith is trusting God even if you feel like you're sinking.
Awesome.
Because sometimes we act like faith means we're not allowed to ask any questions. But Jesus always welcomed people and their questions and their doubts. Last week we heard Josh talk about Thomas, another one of the disciples, saying, "Oh, I can't believe it until I see it." Jesus doesn't shame him. He says, "Okay, here's the scars. Here they are, touch them." John the Baptist, amazing man, like the end of his life, he has to send a message to Jesus to say, "Are you the one or should we expect someone else?" And Jesus doesn't come down on him, he just sends a message back saying, "Yeah, it's me." Martha, she says to Jesus, "If you'd been here, my brother wouldn't have died." Jesus doesn't shut her down for that. He sits with her and he cries with her. Shortest sentence in the Bible, Jesus wept. So what we learned last week is that faith isn't being 100% sure all the time. Faith is just showing up even when you're not sure. So why do we panic if we or someone we love starts to doubt, starts to ask some questions? Because what if doubt isn't a dead end, but a divine invitation? What if God's not offended by your honesty today? What if he's actually inviting it? So what we're encouraging you guys today is to deconstruct faith. To not be afraid to take it apart and look at it and ask some questions. Specifically that age-old question, why? But that word, deconstruction, it can be a bit freaky, can freak people out. So I'm going to hand you over to Bella, who's going to dig deeper into that. Give her a big hand, guys.
All right, well, let's talk about deconstruction. Why are people so scared to deconstruct their faith? Okay, well, what do I really believe? Do I believe in one God to rule them all? Yes, but what about people that have never been told? Doesn't the Bible say that some of them have found Jesus without even knowing it? Does that mean other religions might be worshipping the same God? Do I believe everything that's in the Bible, or is some of it cultural? And what has the Bible told us to do that's changed over time and over culture? And if I pull one piece of my faith apart, does that mean all the rest of the blocks are going to come crashing down? That's what deconstruction is. And many people might view their Christian beliefs like a little Jenga tower. Blocks are built on top of blocks, and if you pull one block out and examine it, you're at risk of the whole tower falling over. Oh no, you might destroy your faith. But hopefully, your faith isn't that fragile.
That's good, right?
Really deep faith comes with all our doubts and all our questions. Deconstruction comes by asking questions, by doubting. It's like pulling apart a Lego set that's been built by someone else, just so you can build it yourself, piece by piece. Let's say I'm 5 years old and I'm playing Lego with my siblings, and David's built a cute little house that a 5-year-old might build, but all power to him, but I'm ripping that thing down because I'll never learn how Lego works if I don't. And I'm not losing the good Lego bricks. I'm making sure that what is built to me, it now makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not 5 anymore, but I'm 20. And I still live with my parents, and I love my parents. But every once in a while, Mum and Dad like to tighten up the food budget. And when they do this, it might look like my food bag. Last week it was bargain box. And I consider myself a creative cook. And I hate using recipes, let alone a set of ingredients sent to me with a 5-step process. Little pre-mixed spice packets with a formula on how to cook them. But what if I like my food a little more spicy than the next girl? What if I'm keen for more greenery in my diet, you know? This particular bargain box had way too much fatty stuff in it, and it left me feeling pretty sick. And let's be honest, there's never enough food for everyone. Someone's going hungry.
Yeah.
So what I do when Mum and Dad force this unfortunate circumstance on me and ask me to cook this bargain box is I'll just deconstruct the box. Just like we're encouraging you to deconstruct your faith, I'll take those ingredients and I'll examine each piece for what it really is, and I'll use my own brain and my own cooking skills to determine what sort of a meal is to be constructed.
That's good, though.
Awesome.
And if I've done a good job, I'll produce a balanced and healthy meal that myself and others will enjoy. Just like faith, deconstructing will produce a deeper, richer, and more fruitful life. A disclaimer, deconstruction is not just picking and choosing the parts of Christianity that suit you. That type of a meal will not work. That's being a crap chef that will create unbalanced meals. Or like Jesus said, it'll produce bad fruit in your life.
That's cool. That's good.
Deconstructing is understanding the ingredients and understanding the techniques for cooking it. Christianity was never meant to be like a bargain box. We're not meant to follow a formula that someone else has created. We're meant to follow Jesus.
Yeah, that's good.
People for thousands of years have been putting bargain box Christianity together, a formula of how they think these Christian ingredients should be put together. And if you're starting out on your journey as a new Christian or a new chef, there's nothing wrong with a formula to learn from, but at some point, questions and doubts around the formula become very important.
Awesome.
Deconstructing the Christian box, inspecting the ingredients, not using the crap spice mix if you don't know what's in it. Questioning each ingredient and its place will not destroy the wholesomeness or integrity produced in the food of your life.
It's cool, though.
It may help you put something more beautiful together that others can enjoy.
So good.
It's cool.
Now Peter's faith wasn't weakened by his doubts. He dared to jump out of the bargain box routine. Hey Jesus, can I walk on water too? That's deconstructing faith right there. Other disciples are just, they're along for the ride. But Peter's thinking outside of the box and outside of the formula.
Yeah.
Then he discovered some limitations he had on the inside. He discovered something about his faith. Some parts of his faith were broken.
So good.
And his faith was deepened because of his questioning. He realized faith isn't about having it all together. It was about trusting Jesus to hold him even when he was sinking. Here's 3 points I'd like for you to consider on how deconstruction strengthens faith. Firstly, it's on the screen, I think. It exposes shallow beliefs. Peter learned faith isn't about having the most important, looking like the most important, strongest, miraculous person. Faith was about trusting even when you're sinking. Second, deconstruction builds trust over certainty. Peter didn't need certainty to know everything, to have all the facts, to know exactly what's going to happen in his future. Deconstructing brought him trust over certainty. When we don't know the answer, when we have a question, when we have a doubt, which is probably most of the time, you just need to simply trust that you can reach for Jesus and he'll be there to pull you up. And lastly, deconstructing makes space for a real relationship with God. It's not a formula someone else has created. It's a person you're learning from to cook. It's not a checklist of beliefs and ingredients or instructions. It's a dynamic yet messy walk with God through life. You know, some people might say, oh, deconstruction, it's dangerous. It's anti-faith. Well, deconstruction is not the problem. Unhealthy silence is. Being so scared to ask a question, scared of your parents or a pastor or a life group leader, scared of God or the image, if you can remember last week, of Uncle Ben, the image of a wrong God. People like that isolate and boo and get bitter, and eventually their faith burns out. Deconstruction can be a form of discipleship. Jesus did it all the time with his disciples. You've heard it said, but I'll tell you. He challenged people's shallow religion to lead them to a deeper truth.
That's cool.
Jesus asked 307 questions. Most of them he already knew the answer to. They were questions he wanted us to ask, in case the bargain box we ordered, the Christianity we had prescribed, was too weak. Sometimes we have to let go of a false faith to discover a real one. I'm going back to jazz.
Thank you, Bella. It's pretty cool. So just to kind of wrap this up, let's go back to Peter and the storm. So Jesus is not cancelling him for sinking. He doesn't say, you blew it. Jesus didn't get angry at Peter's curiosity, at his doubt. He just helps Peter. But the story of Peter and Jesus doesn't actually end there. Later, what happens is Jesus is arrested and he's crucified. And on 3 different occasions, Peter is scared and he denies that he even knows Jesus. He's scared of getting arrested, which is really valid and quite smart. But earlier, Jesus had actually predicted that Peter was going to deny him. And at that time, Peter had said, no way. No way, man. I'm your bro. I am your most committed disciple. I'm the one that gets out of the boat, that walks on water. I am never going to deny you. I'm ready to die for you. I'm going to see it to the end. That's what he thought. That's who he thought he was. But what happens is he does deny him. Not once, but 3 times. So if you think about that, think about how Peter is feeling after Jesus comes back from the dead. Because the last time he saw Jesus, he was like, I'm with you to the end, and then he knows that he's denied him. So he's feeling pretty stink. He's feeling worse than that. He's let his best friend down, and his best friend's died, and he's completely stuffed up. So he is really feeling down. And then he's going to face Jesus, face to face again. But what does Jesus actually do in that moment when Peter's feeling terrible? He cooks some breakfast. They have a feed together, as they often do. And I just love that that's what happens. Because what it means is this: the love of Jesus doesn't flinch, even when we fail. In our doubts, in our questions, he just meets us right in that space. So if you're in a place of doubt or you've got questions, don't panic. Your faith isn't fragile. God is not angry with you or nervous about your questions. Instead, what I'd encourage you to do is this. Find some safe people. Find people who won't just tell you to pray harder or trust more. Find people who will sit with you in your questions, help you wrestle with them. No shame, no judgment, just real conversations. And when you've been through that process, you've just deconstructed it, put it back together, and your faith is stronger because of it, that's when it's time to let go of the past. That's when it's time to just let go of what you figured out, what's not true. Don't let what other people have said shame you or haunt you. Just let go of the lies and hold on to what you found is true. And even if the only thing you can hold on to right now is this, that Jesus still loves me, that's more than enough to start building a strong faith on. So if you feel like you're sinking, if you feel like your prayers are unanswered, if you're full of questions, you're not alone. And Jesus is not running from you. He's reaching out his hand to pull you back into the boat. And that's all from me and Bella tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you come next week to our baptisms, because that is super cool.